Hello everyone. Today we will discuss about how to conduct the experiment of Francis turbine. Myself Kripar along with Dr. Smriti Kasmi, we have made a demonstration of how to conduct the experiment on Francis turbine. So coming to the introduction, as we all know, a turbine is a rotary mechanical device that extracts energy from a fluid and converts it into useful work. Turbines are used in both propulsion systems to generate hydroelectric power, and they are also used in jet and aircraft engines. Today we will be discussing about Francis turbine. Francis turbine is one of the most common water turbine which is in use, and the operating head of Francis turbine is from 10 to 650 meters. They are primarily used for electric power generation. And the turbine power produced power output generally ranges from 10 to 750 megawatts. The main parts of Francis turbine are penstock. Penstock is nothing but a large size conduit which conveys the water from the upstream or the reservoir to the turbine tunnel. Then we have the spiral casing. Spiral casing constitutes a closed passage whose cross-sectional area gradually decreases along the flow of direction of water, and the area is maximum at the inlet and nearly zero at the exit. Then there is a set of guide vanes. These guide vanes direct the water onto the runner at an angle appropriate to the design. The motion of them is given by means of hand wheel or by a governor. Then we have governing mechanisms to change the position of the guide blades or vanes to affect a variation in water flow rate when the load conditions on the turbine change. Then we have the runner and the runner blades. The driving force on the runner is both due to impulse and reaction effect. The number of runner blades usually varies between 16 to 24. And finally, there is a draft tube. It is a gradually expanding tube which discharges the water passing through the runner to the tail race. So basically, Francis turbine is a turbine which is a reaction turbine in which the working fluid comes to the turbine under immense pressure and energy, and the energy is extracted by the turbine blades from the working fluid. Part of the energy is given up by the fluid because of the pressure changes occurring in the blades of the turbine, and while the remaining part of the energy is extracted by the volute casing of the turbine. At the exit, water acts on the spinning cup shaped runner, leaving at low velocity with very little kinetic and potential energy left. The turbine's draft tube is shaped to help the deceleration of water flow to recover the pressure. Okay, so this is the experimental setup which is there in our laboratory for Francis turbine. The aim of the experiment is to study the performance of Francis turbine under constant speed and constant head, and draw the different operating characteristic curves. So this is the tabular column, and these are the formula which we will be using for the calculation. I'll tell you the procedure to conduct the experiment under the constant speed. Okay, first we should remove all the loads on the turbine. Then we should switch on the pump, allow the pump to pick up full speed and become operational. Next we should keep the gate valve open at the maximum. Then run the turbine with no load at a given speed. The loading which is done here is electrical loading for Francis turbine. We should apply the electrical load on the alternator. Due to this, the speed of the turbine will decrease, and we should get back to the original speed of the turbine by adjusting the gate valve or the guide wheel. And we should note down the readings on the pressure gauge, vacuum gauge, and time for end revolutions of the energy meter disc, and head over the V notch. And we should repeat the steps for different load conditions, and we should make sure that the load is released before switching of the turbine. This is the general steps which we follow to run the turbine or get the experimental values of the turbine at constant speed. Now we will show you the video of the demonstration which we have done. We will play the video so that we will have a better idea of how to conduct the experiment.
We have for Francis turbine in our fluid machinery lab at NMIT. I now request Mehto sir to give the demonstration on how to perform the experiment on Francis turbine. Before even starting with the experiment, we'll have to do the zero setting first. That sir will just show that first. So now here we'll have to set the head of the water to 0. So here clearly if you see there is one main scale and then there is a vernier scale. The bottom valve is used for adjusting the vernier 0 with the main scale 0, so that the head is now set to 0. Now once we set this to 0, we should start with the experiment. Now the head has been set to 0. We will switch on the mains. Once the mains are switched on, switch on the console and then start the turbine. Just wait for some time. Let the turbine attain